Welcome back to the arena. I'm Michael Coren. I've been confidently told, so I'm not going to deny it here, but I tell you what is absolutely true. This is the last Moral Maze. Every week we've had Moral Maze. That doesn't mean we don't still embrace and address the issues, but there's a certain repetition of the subjects, and rather than make it every Monday and strain, maybe a bit contrived in terms of what we discuss, we thought we'd not make it a regular item, but the people who are on, they're going to be on every week anyway, because you can't get rid of them. But being the last Moral Maze, it better be the best one ever. Alissa Golob from Campaign Life is here. There's no pressure, but I want the best Moral Maze ever. So let's begin with pornography.
Yes.
Porn users more likely to engage in risky sexual behaviour and have multiple partners. Multiple partners. I'm getting excited. I thought regular porn users never left their basement. How can they?
I think the world would be a better place if that were true.
What do we mean by porn users? People who look at the stuff once every month or so?
I think regular porn users, and I mean, we all know that there is a certain element of addiction to pornography, so I think they took different people who have different levels of watching it at the University of Sydney, and it found that people who did watch porn regularly had more casual sex, a number of sexual partners. And there's so many other studies linked to this, like girls are more likely to have group sex, guys in school are more likely to harass girls, and others in terms of pornography being linked to rape culture. And so I think that this study is nothing new, but it is something to note. Surely, though, causal motivation, if people have the behaviour that they're going to harass women, they're going to indulge in orgies or whatever, then they're going to look at pornography as well. We don't know that one causes the other. Surely it's more of a package. That's the way they are. Well, I think there's a certain escalation, and I mean, like, men aren't born rapists, and I think that once you engage in a smaller type of sexually promiscuity, like pornography, then it escalates, and I think that there is a direct link to watching something on television that's objectifying women and then going out in the world and actually acting it as well. You don't seriously claim that rape is a product of porn. I mean, we've known for years rape is about power. I mean, I don't want to be too crass or gross here, but some of the victims of rape are not women who you would consider attractive. I mean, it can be very elderly women. It's about power. It's about abuse. It's not about sexuality. Well, Dr. Layden is a psychotherapist, and she's an outspoken advocate against pornography, and she says that she's a psychotherapist. Where? I'm not actually sure, but she says that I know that she's a professor at a university, but she says that in her 10 years of practicing, or her 30 years of practicing psychotherapy over the last 10 years, she said that there wasn't one case of women suffering from sexual violence that wasn't directly linked to pornography. So I find that an extraordinary claim to make. I'll have to see where she found that and where she actually teaches. But I mean, I suppose it's one of those, we control what we can, but some things are inevitable. Pornography is out there. Some people are going to look at it. I remember my grandfather, God rest his soul, and he died before the internet, and he couldn't have worked the internet even if he wanted to, and he was a happily married man. But the only time he ever saw pornography was during the war. That's where he also learned to drink and got lots of tattoos. And he said to me once, "I've never bought pornography in my life. I'm not saying I haven't looked at it, I've just never bought it." It's just being reasonable. I mean, okay, someone's looked at pornography, but if they're addicted, if it's a central part of their life, then it's a major problem. And now with the internet, we have more hardcore pornography, we have violent pornography, we have pornography that romanticizes sexual violence. So I think it's different now than it ever has been before. Anything like that is obviously completely unacceptable. Accept and embrace sex work. Now, there's any room for a pun here, I can tell you. But what does that mean? Well, in the Lancet, which is a well-known medical journal. The Lancet? Yeah, the Lancet. World-renowned British medical journal. Mm-hmm. They basically say that sex work is a part of human life, and that's a euphemism for prostitution, isn't it? Yes, prostitution, and they call for the legalization of prostitution. So, I think that this is especially pertinent what's happening in Canada. I think that, for me, it's more, I think that we should have more of a rescue and rehabilitation. Like, I think that we should definitely criminalize the purchasing of sex and follow things that have worked in other countries, like the Nordic model. The Nordic model, yes. And which contradicts this study, of course.
That's an interesting approach. You know, it was a very feministic approach, actually, one that was thought to be on the left, where the implication is the prostitute is not really committing a criminal offence, but the man who is purchasing the sex is. Maybe it works. It's destroyed lots of families and homes, of course. I mean, a guy could be a serial user of prostitutes. He could be a desperate, unhappy man who the first time in his life has stopped on a corner to pick up a woman, and his marriage is over within a week. So there are repercussions.
Absolutely, but I mean, to what extent the repercussions should be, I think that's up for lawmakers. Yeah. But I think that it does work to criminalize the purchasing of sex. I think that there still should be prohibition against profiting from sexual exploitation, and there should be proper exiting strategies and programs
now,
for.
Though, don't we? I mean, again, it's one of these things that is inevitable. The oldest profession in the world, I think that's accountancy. But anyway, the oldest profession in the world, that was a joke. It's going to happen whatever we do, so we protect as many people as possible. We try to get rid of the pimps and the parasites, and we do that relatively well. I mean, it's difficult, though, but you're never going to make it completely. In Amsterdam, where it's legal, of course, there's an illegal trade in the suburbs because there are people who, guess what, don't want to pay high income tax and don't want to be inspected by a government bureaucrat every month.
Well, I think that, you know, it's especially pertinent. I think it is a feministic point of view, which I agree with, because when you legalize, when, you know, the Lancet calls for the legalization of prostitution, how can you live in a society where you want equality for women on one hand, but on the other hand say that we're a commodity to be purchased and sold?
But some women claim they choose it.
Very little, and I would argue that fact. I mean, many prostitutes, even when prostitution was being decriminalized in Canada, came forward and said that it wasn't a choice, and all the occasions that they worked.
I think a very small number choose it. I think they might say they do because, understandably, they want to feel empowered, and so they're not a victim. And there probably are some who do, but I really can't imagine anyone would say, I could be a doctor, I could be a millionaire by writing books or whatever, but I'd rather sell my body to very unattractive guys who... Not too many like that, but who knows, maybe I'm wrong. Hey, we will sing lots more of you. Just because Moral Maze isn't every Monday, you're going to be here all the time anyway. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.